श्री श्रीमद् भाय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय नित्य लील प्रविष्ट ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय नित्य लील प्रविष्ट ओम विष्णुपाद श्रील गौर किशोरदास बाबूजी महाराज की जय। जय नित्य लील प्रविष्ट ओम विष्णुपाद श्रील सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। जय नित्य लील प्रविष्ट ओम विष्णुपाद वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्रील जगन्नाथ दास बाबूजी महाराज की जय। श्री गौरी वैष्णव गुरुवर्ग की जय। नमाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवसति गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। गंगामय की जय। जमुनामय की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नित्य गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओ गौरी समुद्र हरे कृष्ण। ओ गौरी समुद्र हरे कृष्ण। ओ गौरी समुद्र हरे कृष्ण। ओ गौरी श्री गुरु एंड श्री गौरांग। ओ गौरी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। So, reading today from Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 27, Text 5. Tayaivam Brahmamanasya Kamakashmala Chetasaha Kshanardham iva Rajendra Vyatikrantam navam vayaha Tayaivam Ramamanasya Kamakashmala Chetasaha Kshanardham iva Rajendra Vyatrikrantam navam vayaha Tayaivam Ramamanasya Kamakashmala Chetasaha Kshanardham iva Rajendra Vyatikrantam navam vayaha Taivam Ramamanasya Kamakashmala Chetasaha Kshanardham iva Rajendra Taivam Ramamanasya Kamakashmala Chetasaha Kshanardham iva Rajendra Vyatikrantam navam vayaha. Krishna Pr. Later, after the class you will recite it. Okay. Would you like to go? Tayaivam Ramamanasya Kamakashmala Chetasaha Kshanardham iva Rajendra Vyatikrantam navam vayaha. I think there's no Mataji, so if you want the rest you can go. Tayaivam Ramamanasya Kamakashmala Chetasaha Kshanardham iva Rajendra Vitkrantam navam vayaha. Taya, with her, evam, In this way, Ramamanasya, enjoying, Kama, full of lust, Kashmala, sinful, Chetasaha, his heart, Kshana Ardham, in half a moment, Iva, like, Raja Indra, O king, Vyatikrantam, expired, Navam, new, Vayaha, life. Translation. My dear King Prācīnabarhiṣat. In this way, King Purañjana, with his heart full of lust and sinful reactions, began to enjoy sex with his wife. And in this way, his new life and youth expired in half a moment. Purport. Srila Govinda Das Thakur has sung, E dhana yovana putra parijana iti ki achi pariti tire kamala dala jala jivana talamala bhajahu haripada nitire. In this verse, Srila Govinda Das actually says that there is no bliss in the enjoyment of youthful life. In youth, a person becomes very lusty to enjoy all kinds of sense objects. The sense objects are form, taste, smell, touch, and sound. The modern scientific method or advancement of scientific civilization encourages the enjoyment of these five senses. The younger generation is very pleased to see a beautiful form, to hear radio messages of material news and sense gratificatory songs, to smell nice scents, nice flowers, and to touch the soft body or breasts of a young woman and gradually touch the sex organs. All of this is also very pleasing to the animals. Therefore, in human society, there are restrictions in the enjoyment of the five sense objects. If one does not follow, he becomes exactly like an animal. Thus, in this verse, it is specifically stated, Kama Kashmala Chetasaha. The consciousness of King Purañjana was polluted by lusty desires and sinful activities. In the previous verse, it is stated that Purañjana, although advancing consciousness, lay down on a very soft bed with his wife. This indicates that he indulged too much in sex. The words Navam Vayaha are also significant in this verse. They indicate the period of youth from age 16 to 30. These 13 or 15 years of life are years in which one can very strongly enjoy the senses. When one comes to this age, he thinks that life will go on and that he will simply continue enjoying his senses. But time and tide wait for no man. The span of youth expires very quickly. One who wastes his life simply by committing sinful activities in youth immediately becomes disappointed and disillusioned when the brief period of youth is over. The material enjoyments of youth are especially pleasing to a person who has no spiritual training. If one is trained only according to the bodily conception of life, he simply leads a disappointed life because bodily sense enjoyment finishes within 40 years or so. After 40 years, one simply leads a disillusioned life because he has no spiritual knowledge. For such a person, the expiration of youth occurs in half a moment. Thus King Purañjana's pleasure, which he took in lying down with his wife, expired very quickly. Kama Kashmala Chetasaha also indicates that unrestricted sense enjoyment is not allowed in the human form of life by the laws of nature. If one enjoys his senses unrestrictedly, he leads a sinful life. The animals do not violate the laws of nature. For example, the sex impulse in animals is very strong during certain months of the year. The lion is very powerful. He is a flesh eater and is very strong, but he enjoys sex only once in a year. Similarly, according to religious injunctions, a man is restricted to enjoy sex only once in a month, after the menstrual period of the wife, and if the wife is pregnant, he is not allowed sex life at all. That is the law for human beings. A man is allowed to keep more than one wife because he cannot enjoy sex when the wife is pregnant. If he wants to enjoy sex at such a time, he may go to another wife who is not pregnant. These are the laws mentioned in the Manu Samhita and other scriptures. These laws and scriptures are meant for human beings. As such, if one violates these laws, he becomes sinful. The conclusion is that unrestricted sense enjoyment means sinful activities. Illicit sex is sex that violates the laws given in the scriptures. When one violates the laws of scriptures, or the Vedas, he commits sinful activities. One who is engaged in sinful activities cannot change his consciousness. Our real function is to change our consciousness from Kashmala, sinful consciousness, to Krishna, the Supreme Pure. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Param Brahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. Krishna is the supreme pure. And if we change our consciousness from material enjoyment to Krishna, we become purified. This is the process recommended by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a process of Cheto Darpana Marjanam, cleansing the mirror of the heart. And once again, the translation, my dear King Prācīnabarhiṣat. In this way, King Purañjana, with his heart full of lust and sinful reactions, began to enjoy sex with his wife. And in this way, his new life and youth expired in half a moment. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Jnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Soyam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jigatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Goratvishe Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, ecstatic purport from Srila Prabhupada, smashing all sorts of things. And of course, there's so much to discuss within this. I thought briefly, before really diving in, I'll just talk, before diving into I would say the substantial substance of the purport, I'll just briefly mention about the polygamy mention in the verse, because of course we see in Vedic culture polygamy was something that was very much established. In fact, Prabhupada very strongly affirms this, that polygamy is a Vedic standard. So sometimes people have this idea that within the broader Hindu or Vedic culture, polygamy is not allowed. That is done in other communities. But actually, polygamy is very much affirmed in the classical Vedic and Varnashram culture. And we see this throughout so many narratives. And there's no clear injunction to say to stop. People will talk about how Ramchandra did his Ekpatni Vrat and all of these things, but that was not in this yuga, right? And clearly polygamy continued after it. So I don't think it's necessarily the case that polygamy is forbidden. However, Srila Prabhupada himself did discourage polygamy in many of his letters, in many of his lectures. So even though it is very much within the Vedic standard, Prabhupada himself did not encourage it, and he did not encourage it. I don't want to rehash. I gave a class 2 weeks ago about Manusmriti, and there we discussed about the role of Manusmriti and all of these things. And on similar lines, Srila Prabhupada did not encourage practically for members of ISKCON to commit to polygamy, right? Because their mindsets were, well, it's not the right social context, is basically what Srila Prabhupada would say. Prabhupada would either say it's not allowed in the laws or the culture of the land. People would see it as very off-putting, and if people see it as off-putting, it is not necessary to do. In fact, there's one letter where Prabhupada says if Harinam Sankirtan in the street is off-putting to the local people, we shouldn't do it. So Prabhupada was very in tune about what will people think, what will create a good impression of the Vaishnavas. Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada also said a similar thing. He said the Vaishnavas shouldn't wear torn, bad clothes when they go, not because the Vaishnava should be attached to nice clothes, but because the Vaishnava should think that a person will evaluate the value of Krishna consciousness based on how I'm presenting myself, right? So Prabhupada held this even for Harinam Sankirtan on the street. Sometimes we think blindly, just by, and of course it's true. just by chanting the holy name, everyone will be purified. But Prabhupada wanted us not just to have faith in the holy name, but also to have faith in common sense and to be practical. So we see this. I think it was in West Bengal. You can find the letter in Vedabase where Prabhupada writes this. So Prabhupada did say we should not perform polygamy because of the general views in society, and also because it is illegal. But also, he says, I'm almost certain in one letter, he says, but also it is not the psychological disposition of the people who are coming to the movement. They will not be able to properly perform polygamy, right? The whole idea of having multiple wives is that each wife was meant to be taken care of equally, right? Each wife gets her own castle. I remember Ramai Maharaj, he was giving the example of some of these Saudi princes, and each one of their wives has their own castle, right? And so that is meant to be the standard. And of course, in this day and age, again, as we already discussed, the average man properly fails to take care of one wife, right? So what to speak then about the capacity of having multiple wives? So Prabhupada, he said from all these directions, legality, public perception, and also just the psychological build-up of people. So we cannot deny, as Prabhupada has written, that this is no doubt a feature of the classical Vedic culture. But we also cannot deny that our founder Acharya and great authority in all matters did not particularly encourage it. Anyways, I don't think there's many people waking up tomorrow thinking they might want to adopt polygamy to progress in their Krishna consciousness. And as we can see here, this discussion is very much more on a social platform than on a bhakti platform, right? So in this way, polygamy, even though it is no doubt facilitated, it is heavily discouraged, at least in our Krishna conscious practice. Anyways, I just wanted to make some brief comment, brief note on that before we dive in to the verse. And of course, what is this verse all about? It is all about, the pleasures of the Grihastha ashram, right? It is all about the joy that one feels engaged in all of these things, but it is also about how destructive that joy is. I remember I was studying with one of my university friends once, and he was really disturbed, and I was telling him, I was like, "Are you all right? Is everything fine?" And he said, Tilak, I haven't slept with a woman in 2 weeks. That's what he told me, and he was like shaking, he was like scratching like an addict. He was like, I just don't feel stable. That's what he told me, and I remember thinking, my God, what a pathetic way to live. I remember another time I was hearing about one youth who used to come to some bhakti programs. Used to come regularly, and then once I asked another youth, I said, "How's that youth going? Right? Are they still coming?" Yeah, he's still coming, but now he's got a girlfriend, so he's a bit distracted. And I remember thinking, isn't it a shame how easily satisfied we are? Isn't it a shame? He's coming and searching, and then he stumbles on a little bit of sense gratification, then he forgets, right? And the point isn't that he's so easily satisfied because a girlfriend is something little. I mean, I would say it probably is. But what makes him a little satisfied is how little satisfaction do we need for the big questions in order to start ignoring them. No doubt he started coming to these Krishna conscious programs because he was curious. What is the point of my life? What is the nature of my existence? Why, when I wake up and I look in the mirror, do I not know the person who's looking back? Right? All these questions, they're universal. Right? The Srimad Bhagavatam is Amalam Puranam. It is the Shuddha Sattva Purana. Why? Because it's centered around the universal question, which is, what am I meant to do when I'm going to die? Right? The Bhagavad Purana is not the scripture for any one community or one religion or one person, because it's not asking what should a Hindu do, what should a Muslim do, what should an Indian do, what should a African American do. It's not asking any of these questions. It's asking, what should a person who's about to die do? And who is a person about to die? It's you. It's you. It's you. It's you. It's all of us. We are all somebody. What does this verse say? where is it? Oh, that's the wrong verse. Kshanardham, right? Kshanardham, in half a moment, our youth is gone, right? Elsewhere in the Bhagavatam it says, Shana bhanguraha, the human body, in one moment it's gone. So all of us, we are somebody about to die. So this person is coming for those universal questions. And then with a little bit of joy, he's ready to ignore them. It's not that those answers will be answered, those questions will be answered. But with just that tiny hint of joy, he's ready to ignore all of those questions. And isn't that all of us? And how disappointing, how sad. We are so easily satisfied. So in this way, we see that even though it can sometimes seem heavy to speak about these things, it is much within our best interest to remind ourselves how little satisfaction they actually are. Not that we should get deterred away from the really important questions. And of course, we hear many examples of this. One example is, of course, the great king, Maharaj Nahush. And of course, we know, what was he famous for doing? He's in Srimad Bhagavatam. He's in Nahusha. That's what he's famous for, kidnapping Indra's wife. Correct, Prabhu. So, we know, of course, Indra, he's gone off and there's the whole Vritrasura affair, right? And so because of that, when he's not Krishna, right, when Krishna is doing all of his yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata, when Krishna is doing all of that in the material world, he's still there in the spiritual world, right? But Indra is not Bhagavan. Indra is a devata. So when he leaves the heavenly planets, somebody's got to fill in the job. You need a deputy king of the demigods. And so this Maharaj Nahusha, he took the position. And taking the position, he felt very, very, very good about himself. And he felt so good that he thought, well, if I'm taking the role of Indra, I should also be able to marry Indra's wife. What's Indra's wife's name? Which one is it? Shachi. We can remember Mahaprabhu's mother. So he thinks, I can go marry her. This is perfect. I will maximize my sense gratification. I'll maximize my joy. And so of course he goes and he tells her, and she says, I don't really want to do this. And she comes up with a solution. She says, okay, you can do this if you can get carried for a marriage procession, an engagement procession by the Saptarishis, right? He says you can do this. And so he thinks, okay, he's so blinded by lust that he thinks, I will ask them. I'll ask them to carry me. And so he goes and he asks them. And all of them, being the embodiment of humility, they say, yes, we will do it. And so then they carry him, and he's feeling very good. I'm Indra. And then while doing this, they're going really slowly. And he's so consumed with lust in that moment, he can't even wait. They're carrying him too slowly. And he starts telling them, Sarpa, Sarpa, faster, faster. And then at one point, who is one of the great munis who is carrying him? Agastya Muni. And what is he famous for? What is he famous for? Prabhu was laughing. Well, he's famous for being angry, right? He's famous for being grumpy. So he hears this and he's, Sarpa, Sarpa, what are you saying? I will turn you into a Sarpa. I will turn you into a serpent. And so he curses him. You'll fall away from these heavenly planets. You'll become a snake on the earth. In this way we see the glories of lust. But of course this creates an issue, right? Because while he was filling the shoes of Indra, now somebody has to fill his shoes, right? Back on earth. And who is there? It's said in Srimad Bhagavatam, just as a soul has many senses, this king, he had many sons. Does anyone know who is his oldest son's name? Sorry, I'm really quizzing you all. Sorry? No, but good guess. His first son is Yati. Does anyone know what is his second son? Yayati, right? Yayati. Then Samyati, Ayati, Viyati, Kriti. So he has these are his sons. And of course Yati, he is the eldest, so he becomes the king. Except Yati means what? Yati means renunciate. So the moment he is offered the throne, he rejects it. And Srila Prabhupada says this is very glorious that he rejects the throne. Why? Prabhupada writes, it is very hard to be spiritual and be a politician. This is what Prabhupada writes. And so Yati had the intelligence of thinking, if I get involved in all of these things, how will I be able to focus on my spiritual life? So better I don't take the throne. So Yati, he was very wise, and he didn't take the throne. Yayati, on the other hand, was also very wise, but he was a little less of a renunciate. He was a real Dharma Shastras man, right? He was a man of Dharma. And so Yayati, he then assumed the throne. And in this way, he took control. It's described as the two dynasties. There's the lunar dynasty and there's the solar dynasty. So they would take turns, they would alternate. Sometimes the lunar dynasty would rule Bharatvarsh, and then all of the other realms were ruled by the Surya Varsh. So at the same time, while Yayati Maharaj was ruling, the other dynasty also had a great ruler. Does anyone know who was, sorry, this is a bit of a boring quiz trivia section, but does anyone know who was the king at the time? At the same time as Yayati Maharaj. I remember Ghanesham Prabhu, he was giving Bhagavatam class maybe, this was like 7 years ago now, right? And I remember this point really stuck with me. He said, when we read Bhagavatam, we'll see that it's always referencing other personalities. It's always referencing other stories. And sometimes we can skim over it. Oh, this person was around at this person's time, this person. We can skim over it, right? Just a list of names, right? But if we really focus on these names, and later on, I'll come back to this point. If we really focus on these names, we'll see that this whole Bhagavatam is like a web tying into each other. And we'll see how all of these figures, they fill in the gaps of each other's stories, right? In this Bhagavatam, it comes together. I remember telling Ed this when Ed was first reading Bhagavatam, right? That each part of the Bhagavatam, it's like a musical instrument, right? And it's playing a nice song. But once we are able to hear all the parts of the Bhagavatam together, it becomes like an orchestra, right? They're all playing a little beautiful part, but when you can hear all the parts together, it sounds so beautiful. So in this way, we can see Bhagavatam is fit together so nicely, knitted together. So Ambarish Maharaj, he is the other king. Both of the 8th generation in their respective solar and lunar dynasties, Chandravangsh and Suryavangsh. Anyway, so Yayati Maharaj, he becomes the king. Now, of course, we hear in Srimad Bhagavatam, after becoming king, Shukadev Goswami, he begins to describe, and he says, Yayati Maharaj had 2 wives, Devayani and Vrishaparva. No, Sharmishta. Vrishaparva's her dad. Sharmishta, right? And he says, Devayani, the daughter of Shukracharya. And of course, Sharmishta, the daughter of Vrishaparva. Right? So in this way, he has these 2 wives. And at this point, Parikshit Maharaj becomes confused. And he says, wait, this doesn't make sense. Yayati Maharaj, he is this great Dharma Raj, king of the world and king of Dharma. But Shukracharya, he is a Brahmana. Yeah? Devayani. So, how can he be married? How can Yayati Maharaj be married to Devayani? How can this be the case? Because he is a Kshatriya and she is a Brahmani. How can this be the case? Parikshit Maharaj, he asks this because actually Shukadev Goswami does this the whole time. When he's speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, he speaks it in a way that it is slightly confusing. He speaks it in a way where there's contradictions. You see the whole Brahma Vimohan Leela happens. And he says, yeah, and then a few years later, and then Parikshit Maharaj, he says to Shukadev Goswami, he says, wait, what do you mean a few years passed, right? And then this whole Leela is born. And there's a few reasons why this is done. One is Shukadev Goswami, he is very expert in Bhagavad Katha. And to be expert in Bhagavad Katha means that you find a way to engage the audience. And there's no better way to engage the audience than to confuse them, right? Because then they start thinking, hey, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. And they think and think and think. Another way is he has taken the position of guru. And the guru's job is to test the disciple. And so he's testing, seeing, is this person understanding what I am saying? If he has understood what I have said about Srimad Bhagavatam, he will notice there is a contradiction now. And then lastly, he says it so that Parikshit Maharaj gets the opportunity to do service. To do service to all the people who are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Otherwise, Shukadev Goswami, he is doing all of the seva, but he doesn't want to hoard all the seva to himself. He doesn't want to keep all the seva and keep it just in his hands. He wants to share seva. This is the nature of prasadam and seva. We should be desirous to share it. How merciful is Srila Prabhupada? Srila Prabhupada, if he wanted to, could have turned every single person on the earth into a devotee. But he has left some opportunity for us to engage in this service as well. So in this way, service and prasadam should never be hoarded. When we get prasad in our hand, our first tendency shouldn't be, wow, I have the Mahaprasad. It should be, now I can share this with the other devotees. So in this way, Parikshit Maharaj, Shukadev Goswami, he is sharing this service of Bhagavad Katha with Parikshit Maharaj, giving him the opportunity, oh, you can serve all the other people here by asking a question that they might want answered. So in this way, this question arises. And so we hear Devayani, daughter of Shukracharya, once the son of Brihaspati. Brihaspati and Shukracharya, they're sort of like, how do we say? They're in a competition, right? They're both the respective gurus, right? Of the devatas and of the demons, right? So they have a, if you will, a friendly competition, right? Maybe an unfriendly competition. So they have a very competitive mood. However, the son of Brihaspati Kacha, he was learning from Shukracharya a very special skill called Mrita Sanjeevani. And Mrita Sanjeevani means that if somebody dies but their body has not yet split apart, you can sort of yank the soul and put it back in the body. It's a very, very powerful technique. And very few people, basically only Shukracharya was a real master of it. So Kacha, he was spending this whole time learning from Shukracharya, this very powerful skill, right? I guess you could say it's sort of like in a university where if your university doesn't offer the course, you can sit at another university and do the course there and then take the credits, right? So this is what he was trying to do. He wanted to learn this skill. But then also, he did what many university students do, and he got a little bit of a crush, right? He had a little bit of affection for Devayani. And he told her, I really think we should get married. I think this is a fantastic idea. I remember I went to a Christian school, and often it would be a thing that the boys would do. If they really were filled, as Prabhupada said, with lusty thoughts, they'd go to the girls and they'd say, I was praying last night and God told me, I think we should get married. So in this way, he said, I think it would be a great idea if we get married. And then she said, this is very inappropriate. My father is your guru, right? This is very inappropriate. This shouldn't be done. And then he got very angry. He got very upset. And he said, I will curse you. I will curse you that you will never be able to marry a Brahmana. You will never have this opportunity in your life. And then she cursed him. No matter how hard you study, you'll never be able to do the Mrita Sanjeevani trick. So what to do? He didn't get any credit transfer for that. So in this way, he was messed over, but she was screwed over as well. Very unfortunate arrangement. Anyway, so in this way, she keeps on going on with her life, what to do. And then one day, and we see this, she has this slight quality, and it's actually not becoming of a Brahmini. I heard this in one Harikatha. We should not think that actually her behavior in this pastime is actually very Brahminical. She manifests a lot of non-Brahminical behavior throughout this whole thing. Tolerance, forgiveness, compassion, these are all the qualities of a Brahmini or a Brahmana. And she is not so much displaying them. Anyway, so one day, she's there, now she's playing with all of her friends. And amongst her friends now is, of course, the daughter of Rishaparva, Sharmishta. And they're all playing together and they're going out into the river and, they're swimming and they're bathing, right? And then at one point, very quickly, somebody appears in the distance, very far away, there's one person. And this person is known to be very fast in moving. This is, of course, Shiva. This is Mahadev with Parvati, right? And together, they're coming very close. And of course, because he is such a potent personality, he's moving so quickly. So they all become shocked. They all become so shocked, they think, oh no, this person is coming so quickly. And of course, it's not like in our Western culture where you will bathe freely in front of anyone, right? They became very ashamed, right? So instantly, they quickly all grabbed their clothes so that they could be dressed for the moment Shiva appears. But in this chaos, in this rush, what happens? I realize I haven't even started the pastime. We're nearly out of time, sir. We'll cut it short. So in the chaos, in the rush, what happens is that Sharmishta, she grabs Devyani's clothes, and they wear each other's clothes. And at this point, Devyani feels so insulted. And she says, who are you? Who are you to wear a Brahmini's clothes? This is not the appropriate mindset. She says, the whole universe was created by the mercy of the Brahmanas. This is technically true, because Brahma is a Brahmana, right? And she says, in the Shastras, don't you know, Krishna says that if one is born a Brahmana, then means their life is already successful. And in this way, she says all of these things. You're not qualified to touch my stuff, right? And then Sharmishta, she responds with the appropriate attitude of a Kshatriya, with anger. And she says, what are you Brahmins doing? Sitting around begging, right? Doing nothing, just lazing around, svaha, svaha, like that. She starts blasting her. Like this, they go back and forth. Of course, all of these glories of the Brahmin are true. But Varaha Purana says they are true for the other yugas. In Kali Yuga, the Varaha Purana explicitly says that in Brahmin families, demons are born, right? So much the opposite is true. So in this way, of course, the back and forth happens. And now here's the thing. We can think of the standard physique of a Brahmin. Prabhupada says Brahmins are meant to be a little bit chubby, right? This is the physique of a Brahmin. And what is the physique of a Kshatriya? We can think they're muscular, they're strong. So here we have Sharmishta. She's there, strong Kshatriya girl, with all of her Kshatriya friends. And we have one Brahmini. So what happens? With all of her anger she comes and she picks up Devyani and she throws her down a well. And then she's stuck there under the well. Of course, anyways, I'll say the pastime a little faster because we don't have much time. So of course, as we know very famously, who saves her? Yayati, right? And he picks her up with his hand. And then she says, you've taken my hand. That means we're married. And Yayati Maharaj will see this. Yayati Maharaj, he says yes. Even though it's kind of against dharma. Even though it's kind of against varnashram. He says yes, because he's very practical. Again, this is the point that we should understand about varnashram. Varnashram is practical. It's not these rigid rules. He was so very practical because he thought this poor girl is cursed. She's just explained it to me, that she can't marry anyone else. So who else will marry her, right? She can't marry any Brahmin. So I must marry her. I must do this. If she wishes to get married, I once again have to be practical. So we can see here, what is the principle of varnashram? The principle is that if there is a more compassionate, more practical approach, that is the one that must be taken. So anyways, in this way, they get married and they have a whole thing. However, what we also hear is that when she was finally rescued, she went and she told her father. She said, you know what they did to me. And instantly, Shukracharya, he starts running over to Vrishaparva. And as he runs over, Vrishaparva is already ready. He knows what is coming. And he feels anxious. Because he thinks, I know exactly what Shukracharya is about to say. Does anyone know? What is Shukracharya about to say? He's about to say, if you don't fix this right here, right now, I'm going to go, and I'm going to join Brihaspati, and I'm going to help the Devatas. And then what will happen? If Brihaspati and Shukracharya are both there helping the Devatas, the demons can say goodbye to any power, any influence they have. So at this point, there's a real anxiety amongst the demons. If Shukracharya leaves us, and we can think this is a principle of Guru Tattva actually. If we offend the Guru, it doesn't matter what happens, right? Doesn't matter what else happens in our life, we've lost. So this principle is so important that the moment Shukracharya appears, instantly the king, he's there at his feet, and he's saying, whatever you need, I will do it. Now Shukracharya at this point, he says, or rather he thinks, I can get whatever I want. And this is a central theme of this section of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a very central theme. Everyone in this story is lacking genuine consciousness. When we become covered in Maya, our capacity to think becomes very covered, and our capacity to identify becomes covered, and we only identify with our consciousness to those who are close to us. The sign of a person who is in Maya is that they will favor their child. I'll never forget, one Grihastha once told me, with full seriousness, my son is so special. And everyone knows it. All my relatives say my son is the most special in the whole family. And everyone in the temple knows it. My son is the most special boy of all the boys. And he really believed it. And I thought every parent loves their child. But most parents should hopefully have the intelligence to realize that their love is coloring the way they look at their child. But this is the power of Maya. He really thought, not only that he thought his child was better than every child, but every other parent thought that his child was better than their children. This is Maya. This is full Maya, right? And so Shukracharya, in this point, he is covered in Maya, and he says, my beautiful baby daughter, whatever she wants, you should give that. Now at this point, what does she say? We know very famously. She says, I want Sharmishta to be my maidservant. Now of course, sometimes we think this is so cruel, right? How could the king say yes? But the king had to realize if he said no, then what was going to happen? The daughter was going to be the maidservant of God knows who after their whole kingdom gets destroyed. So he saw it as a necessary compromise in what was a bad situation. Again, I've heard this in many kathas, that this behavior of Devyani is not actually so ideal. This is not very Brahminical behavior. Still, she says this, and of course, the agreement is there. So then on the wedding day, everything happens. And what did Shukracharya very famously tell to Maharaj Yayati? Only have kids with my daughter. Don't have kids with Sharmishta or anyone else. And in this way he gives the instruction. And Yayati Maharaji agrees. Again, we don't have much time, we can't go into the details. But what do we see? What do we see at the end? At the end, we see that Sharmishta goes and she says, actually, I'm seeing all these cute kids going around. Who are Devyani's kids? Yadu and? I'll give you a hint. It begins with ta and rhymes with urvasu. Turvasu, yes. So here are the two children. She sees these kids. She's like, they're so cute. I want my own kids. And again, what do we see about the character of Maharaj Yayati? He is not yet actually considered so fallen. The Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada at this point still actually speak somewhat highly of him. And what do they say? He breaks the promise he made to Shukracharya in order to give her some children. And why is this? The reason why is, again, he is practical and he is merciful. Why should I deprive this woman of a joy that she wishes to have, which is the joy of having children? Why should I deprive her? Because I made this promise, right? Again, we can see this Vedic system is very practical. And it is built on the idea that if we have two contradictory injunctions, we should always take the more merciful one. We should always take the more compassionate one. What has Bhaktivinoda Thakur told us is the essence of all religion? What is it? Sorry? Chant Hare Krishna and something else. Jive doya. Jive doya Krishna nam sarva dharma sar. The essence of all religion is compassion on the jivas and chanting Krishna's name. And if what you're going to do is not coming from compassion, it's useless. It's not dharmic. This is bogus dharma, faltu dharma. Any dharma that does not proceed from compassion or does not facilitate the chanting of Krishna's name, it is not. Because sar, the essence of dharma, is there in those two things. And if what you are doing does not have those two things, then it can't be dharma, because it's dharma without its essence. And not bhakti dharma sar, not jaiva dharma sar, sarva dharma sar. Right? All dharma is encapsulated in these things. So for this way, now, and then she has druhu, puru, anu, I think. I'm forgetting. Puru is there, Druhyu is there. Anu, I'm pretty sure is the last one. I could be wrong. Yeah. So, what? Okay, I've got the stamp of approval. So, at this point now she has those children. And of course we know, again, we're running out of time. Of course we know she runs off, gets upset with her father, and he's chasing behind her. He's like, no, come on, your father can really, really mess up my life if he wants to. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Still she goes. She's so angry, Devyani, upon hearing that Shamishta was given children, right? And then of course Shukracharya hears this and he gets so angry and he curses Maharaj Yayati. And what does he say? He says, you'll become a very old man, very ugly, very, very, very devoid of all your youth. And then Maharaj Yayati at this point, we see his character starts to shift. And he becomes very disturbed by this. This idea disturbs him. I've been robbed of my youth. I've been robbed of it completely. And then, feeling robbed of his youth, what does he tell Shukracharya? It's very interesting in Bhagavatam what he says. He doesn't say, oh, if I don't have my youth, I will be robbed of joy. He says, if I am robbed of my youth, I will be robbed of my joy with your daughter. Again, Shukracharya, his mind is small, right? His mind is small and it's just absorbed in what is giving my family pleasure, what is giving my family joy. And he thinks, oh, yeah, that's right. My daughter won't be able to have midnight full moon dates with Maharaj Yayati, she won't have all these joys. I want to give my daughter this. So then, of course, we know he gives a very famous boon. If anyone will accept your old age, you can take their youth. And we know who's the first person he goes to, Yadu, right? I can't do my quizzing anymore because I only have 5 minutes left. He goes to Yadu, right? And he goes to Yadu and he says, please give me your youth. And then Yadu says no. And then he goes to all of the others, Turvasu, Druhyu, all of these. And he goes and he asks them and they all say no, 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 no. Until finally Puru gets asked. And what does Puru say? He says yes. Not only does he say yes, he says, I am the most fallen son. Because actually, there are 3 categories of sons. There's a son who acts before the father or mother has spoken. There's a son who acts when the father or mother has spoken. And then the 3rd type of son is a son who acts not willingly, but against his general desire, right? He acts begrudgingly. He acts grumpily upon the desire of his mother or father. And I'm in that 2nd category. I'm not even a first-class son. I should have known that when you were asking all my other brothers that you wanted my youth, and I should have volunteered it then. And we can see this is a very paramarthic concern. Because of course, in spiritual life, the father is the guru. And we should understand this. The first-class disciple is not the disciple who is obedient to everything the guru says. The first-class disciple is the disciple who knows the heart of the guru and will do it even without the guru expressing it. This is guru seva. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale. Why is the founder Acharya of our Gauriya Vaishnava Sampradaya Rupa Goswami? Because he understood the heart of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And understanding the heart of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he became the most perfect disciple of him. I was once asking my dear friend, Gopati Krishna Prabhu, Jai Pataka Maharaj's personal servant, right? I was asking him, him being the personal servant is relevant to the question I was asking. I said, you're always serving Maharaj, you're always there. I said, what would you say is the greatest joy of this service, right? And he said, well, the greatest joy of this service is to receive mercy, of course. And then I said, what is the greatest mercy that one can receive from the Guru? And he said, the greatest mercy anyone can receive from their Guru is to understand their mood. If you can understand the heart of your Guru, that is the greatest mercy. And I really liked this point. And he said, because of this, the Guru is merciful. He said, so many people are thinking, that because I'm doing menial service for Guru Maharaj, I'm getting some special mercy. And in one sense I am. I'm able to personally bathe my Guru, I'm able to personally get all these items ready, I'm able to render all these services. But he said, this is not the main mercy, right? The main mercy is that Guru Maharaj has expressed his mind. And some disciples whose hearts are open can hear that mind and internalize it into their heart, right? And he said he has personally seen how Jai Pataka Maharaj, how fond he is of the disciples even who don't serve him personally, who he only sees very rarely, but he knows have fully imbibed his mood and instructions. He's seen how Maharaj has a special affection for them even more than the personal servants. So this is what it means to be a first-class disciple, that my Guru doesn't even need to speak and I can serve them. And we see this. Srila Prabhupada didn't have to ask his Guru Maharaj, what's a further instruction? Simply by preaching this Krishna consciousness movement, Prabhupada made so many adjustments, made so many dynamic insights into how Krishna consciousness could be applied, and he never needed to ask his Guru Maharaj because he had fully internalized his Guru's mood into his heart. But of course, this comes through obedience, not that we can think, oh, I understand my Guru's mood, I don't need to get guidance from them. This comes from the guidance of the Guru. So many people think, oh, I will serve Guru, I already know their mood, I will, and then they mentally speculate so much nonsense. So much nonsense. And we see this, frankly speaking, in our contemporary International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So many people speculate what Prabhupada wanted because they don't read Prabhupada's books. I hear people talking about their big visions to serve ISKCON and they haven't even read Srimad Bhagavatam. How can you serve ISKCON if you haven't read Srimad Bhagavatam? You can, under the guidance of devotees who have read Srimad Bhagavatam. I don't want to discourage anyone from doing services, right? Please do services. Under the guidance of somebody who's read Srimad Bhagavatam, not because you need books, but you need somebody whose heart has been opened and has been filled with the instructions of the Guru so that they can become a first-class disciple. Such a first-class disciple can help us become first-class disciples. This is the nature of Guru Tattva. Guru is not somebody who helps us make our seva more convenient. Guru is not somebody who helps us fit into the community we're in. Guru is not somebody who validates our bhakti even. Guru is somebody who has entered into our heart and transformed it. This is the nature of Guru. And if we can't be a first-class disciple because we don't know the heart of the Guru, then is that person really our Guru? Or are they just a person who's stamped on our head a new name? So in this way, we should understand the paramarthik understanding of this. My God, I've run out of time. I haven't even got to the main point of the pastime. Anyways, we all know, then he takes the youth. And of course, we know Yadu's rejection is perfect, right? Our acharyas, they criticize all of the other brothers who said no. I'm wrapping up on this, don't worry. All the other brothers who said no, our acharyas criticize them. But they glorify Yadu. Because Yadu didn't say, no, I want to enjoy my youth. He said, no, I want to use my youth to develop the experiences that will help me grow in Krishna consciousness. Once again, we see the paramarthik consideration. Every child should be fully obedient to the concerns of their parents until and unless it contradicts dharma. Until and unless it contradicts one's spiritual progress. That is the one time you're allowed to be a little rebellious. So it is very glorious that he said no. Anyways, we know he goes on with his whole life. And he enjoys for 1,000 years, Prabhupada says, in transcendental bliss. I'm not sure exactly what Prabhupada means because it's not transcendental bliss, but I need to ask somebody why Prabhupada, the word is paramam priti, and Prabhupada translates it as transcendental bliss. I will need to clarify one day. I'm not sure why. But anyways, he goes on for 1,000 years enjoying like this. And then of course we know he realizes this is so very empty. I'll finish on this point. He realizes the emptiness of this, what we know is just a sexual endeavor, right? He realizes this is worthless. And he goes and he gives back the youth to Puru. He makes Puru the king overall and gives all the other sons a different direction, northwest, southeast, like that. And then he goes and he enters into the forest. Bhagavatam says in the same way that a baby bird, as it's being fed day by day, eventually one day, suddenly is able to fly, and it flies and leaves the nest and never comes back. In the same way, Yayati Maharaj, he gave back the youth, and his soul left his body. But he didn't die. He was Jivan Mukta. He was a liberated soul, walking around, engaging in devotional service. As a side note, he would always refer to Krishna, the main name he would refer to as Prabhu. So it's said that he was in Aishvarya Dasya Bhav. He was, just as a little side, Siddhantic note. So in this way, he was engaged constantly. But we also know something else. We know, and I swear this is my concluding point, we know that before he did this, he said a very special story about a goat. And I won't say the story of the goat, but basically the goat was a very thinly veiled story about himself and how he fell. Right? He pulled Devayani out of the well, and she pulled him in to the well of Maya, right? And in this way, he says this story. And she sticks with it. And then at one point she realizes as well, no, I've been in Maya as well. And she also goes and embraces Krishna consciousness. So both of them together are in this position. And this is what I want to conclude on this point. In this way together, they've realized that this lust is so empty, is so meaningless, right? There's no value to it. But she realizes, by the mercy of Maharaj Yayati. What does this mean? It means that the Bhagavatam is showing us a general pattern. That whenever we have realization, whenever we have knowledge, we cannot be selfish with it. We cannot hoard it onto ourselves. We cannot say, I should keep it. And just, okay, now that I've understood Krishna consciousness, let me go and let me chant rounds, 64 rounds a day. Let me read Bhagavatam and let me go back home, back to Godhead. That is not the mood of our Gauriya Vaishnava Sampradaya. That is not even the mood of Vaikuntha, right? Or to speak of Goloka, the highest of all Vaikuntha planets. The mood is, I have learned something about the nature of this world, and I must have compassion in order to share this knowledge. We see the shift in the mindset of Maharaj Yayati. He's not in the small world of his senses and his family anymore. He's in the broad mindset of, I must give Krishna consciousness to everyone. And in this way, he gives Krishna consciousness to his wife. So this is the nature of spiritual knowledge. We ourselves are being told, Srila Prabhupada himself is beyond any of the touchings of lust. Why is he talking about it? You know, like I remember when I read this purport, I was thinking, Prabhupada's talking about like grabbing breasts in this purport, right? Why is Prabhupada talking about this? It's not that Prabhupada has any desire to talk about these things, right? But it's because once one has realization, they must share it. They must give it. They must give it to places. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu says the nature of the Vaishnava, of the Mahabhagavat, of the great personality is that they go to the places they do not belong. This is the nature of the great personality. They go to places they do not belong and they give Krishna consciousness. And so we see this with Maharaj Yayati. What is the sign that he became broad in his consciousness? It wasn't actually that he renounced sex life. Renouncing sex life, even the lions do it, except for that one time in a year, right? That is not the sign of his progress. The sign of his broadening of his consciousness is that he attained some Krishna consciousness and he sought to share it. This is the actual manifestation of spiritual growth. Jive doya. And how did he attain Krishna consciousness? And this is honest to God, the final point. How did he attain it? Does anyone know? What was it in 1,000 years? Did he just finally get sick and tired of material life? It can't be. Krishna bhuli se jiva nadi bohirmukho. Anadi, for all eternity we've been in the material world. We've had more than 1,000 years, I'll tell you that much, and we didn't get sick and tired and just become a devotee. So what brought him to start meditating on the Supreme Lord? Does anyone know? I already gave you the answer, actually. At the same time as he was ruling, there was a great king as well, Ambarish Maharaj. And because of his interaction with Ambarish Maharaj, what interaction means, I've heard two different interpretations of the Sanskrit word. One is that he physically met him. The other is that the Brahmins who were helping him rule were reciting the glories of Ambarish Maharaj. Either way, hearing about the great personality and seeing the great personality are non-different. So he has had some interaction with Ambarish Maharaj. And because Ambarish Maharaj is such a great personality, because of that, some bhakti was awoken. So we shouldn't think that Yayati Maharaj attained his realization, through the lessons he learnt in his material life. He did not attain his spiritual realization by being exhausted with the happiness in material life. He did not attain it through any austerity. He did not attain it through any study. He attained it through sadhu sangha. This is how Maharaj Yayati attained this understanding. So we have the final concern. What is it? Lust is a thing that prevents us. It holds us back. Lust is a thing that so easily satisfies us and makes us deny the big questions that guide our life. And the sign that we have overcome lust, truly overcome lust and expanded our consciousness, is not that we no longer engage in lust, but that we engage in service by spreading jive doya, mercy to all the jivas. And how is the way that we can overcome this terrible lust that makes us so easily satisfied? It is with the association of the Vaishnavas. It is by the association and mercy of the devotees. Anyways, I've gone very much over time. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Maharaj Jayati ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Okay, Hare Krishna. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Krishna Padaya, Krishna Vishaya Bhutanisha.